Have you ever reconnected with an old friend only to be horrified of who they've became? I knew a girl in high school who was pretty cool. We went on a class trip and spent a lot of time hanging out. Then later I went to a few punk shows with her. 7 or 8 years later, I was back in town visiting. I stopped at a gas station to fill up. And this emaciated, dirty creature stepped out of the shadows and asked me if I had any spare change. It was her. She looked like she hadn't eaten in days and had track marks all up and down her arms. She didn't recognize me. I gave her the few bills I had in my pocket and left. Kind of haunts me to this day. Edit. 4 months later. She actually messaged me on FB recently. Looks like she kicked her habit and is doing well today. My husband ran into an old friend and invited him over to hang out. It had been about 5 years since he had seen him. The old friend shows up with the sketchiest hoe bag you can imagine. Missing teeth. Saws. The whole nasty set. The chick makes a beeline for my bathroom and spends like 45 minutes in there before bolting to my patio and puking over my balcony. I had had enough, so I kicked them out. As they were leaving, they looked around my apartment and said, "You have really nice things, we will be back." When I went into my bathroom, I found an orange cap from a syringe on the floor. TL. Doctor, if it has been 5+ years since you have seen someone, do not invite them to your place. You have really nice things, we will be back. I would take that seriously if I were you. They probably will be back. 2 years after we broke up, an ex contacted me out of the blue and we decided to hang out. While dating, we talked a lot about dropping out of high school and getting our GEDs so we could go to college early. I never did either one. And he decided it'd be a good plan to drop out but never get his GED. He was playing the Yu-Gi-Oh card game pretty much full time. This was a while ago, and living off of his mom. He was living in this shitty apartment full of garbage with a friend, his girlfriend, and her baby. I ran for the hills. So you didn't fall for his trap card? Why run for the hills? That's a keeper. Not horrified, but I recently reconnected with a childhood friend, who from what I remember was a nerdy fat kid with minor Asperger's. I reconnected at the age of 18 and he is now a nerdy, ripped, 6'4" monster of a man with a Klingon bat'leth on the wall and every Star Trek action figure mint in box. Signed by the actor who played them. He decided it was time to get into shape to pass the Starfleet fitness tests. The power of 4chan's fit. My ex found me on Facebook. After we broke up, she dropped out of college, got into intravenous drugs, and did some internet PRN. She wanted to know if I wanted to come over to her halfway house for sex. I did not. I found out that an individual whom I played sports with, many times giving me rides to practice and games, was running a near multiple-year-long internet scam. They posed as a parent whose child had cancer, using pictures they stole from other people and their children around the internet. The scam ended up gaining scores of supporters and went so far as selling personalized wristbands with the child's "Remember the child is not real" name on it. They are now under investigation for possible money laundering. However, it is not proven that they did or did not. This scam was so large that there are multiple large news groups that picked up and reported the story, which is how I found out. My mind is still blown from my discovery. What a clever kid. It's amazing what you can accomplish when you abandon all social standards and disregard good morals. My best friend from when I was 9 got hooked on pills and never learned to spell. We used to stuff our bras together. A few years back, I met up with an old friend to find out that he only wanted to hang out so he could pitch a pyramid scheme to me. FCKU. Dude. Same shitty with me. It was a going to party thing. She drove and picked me up cause I had no idea where it was. After going away to college and coming back to my hometown, I was horrified to find out that my best friend turned into a neo-Nazi KKK guy. This is the same guy that I would have dinner at his house. Mom and dad loved me and even his nephew. He had gone to the extreme by getting Nazi tattoos and even wearing racist shirts. He still was very nice to me and invited me over where he was proudly displaying his rebel flag. Tats. Nazi symbols. It was hard for me to think this was my friend who would pick me up every day for school and drop me off. By the way, I'm a black female. I still somewhat talk to his sister and parents. I had a best friend from 7th grade on. We were inseparable. Had matching tattoos. Bought a mini school bus together. Painted it green. She lived with my grandparents for a while in high school because her mom threw her out. Right before I went to college she started using drugs. And naturally, I was worried, devastated. I was also a prude back then. But then again, crack is never cool. Close bracket. I went to a bar for my 21st birthday in my hometown. Because I'm born around Christmas and it was winter break. Unfortunately, none of my other friends were 21 at the time. So I was just kind of sitting at the bar drinking Babriezes with my mom. I decided to call my old friend up. When she showed up she was so burnt out that she could hardly form a sentence. She was really FK'd up on something. 2. I remember feeling like someone punched me in the gut. I still miss her. I ended up hearing from one of my old childhood friends and neighbor that one of our other childhood friends in the neighborhood who I hadn't talked to in over a decade murdered his college girlfriend and is spending life in prison now. We were best friends from like 5-13 years old until our family moved. When I was living out of the country, a friend of mine who I had already not seen for years was hit by a car. Back in the US of A. When I got back 10 months later, he had just gotten out of PT and physically was doing very well. So we start talking. Reminiscing on the old times. Talking about what we had done since we last saw each other. Turns out that in the years we spent apart he became a massive racist. Card-carrying member of one of the US Nazi Party and a knight of one of the many clans. My story is close enough to share. Couple of years after high school some friends and I were discussing the recent arrest of another guy in our grade. Another friend mentioned this guy was going through the police academy with him until he suddenly stopped coming. This guy used to throw big parties in high school where there was lots of alcohol. I had never been invited but knew guys that had. Turns out that at these parties the guy would tell others that he had a girl that would give them a blowjob but was shy and would only do it if they were blindfolded and had hands behind their back. Somehow someone found out that there was no girl. Suddenly no one would admit that they had gone to the parties. Suddenly no one would admit that they had gone to the parties. I had never been invited but knew guys that had. Yeah. I am that friend. My life went to shitty after high school. Everyone reconnects with me. They see how bad a hole I'm in and they just bail and never talk to me after that. Edit. Thanks for the Reddit gold. I don't know if I'll use it or how much I'll get out of it. But the super upvote is nice. I found a childhood friend that I hadn't seen for 25 years or so on Facebook. Turns out, he's a huge racist now. On a related note, a guy I knew from the army 20 years ago that was a racist skinhead is now one of the most tolerant people I know. American History XX. I feel like that's what happens when old friends reconnect with me. You need to stop trying to sell them Amway. I got a phone call 2 days ago from someone I've known for 20 years. We haven't spoken 10. He called me to tell me he has prostate cancer and has around 2 weeks left. He wanted my shipping address so he could send me his most personal items. He refused treatment. And isn't telling his family. They live across the country. I'm the only person he has told. So yeah. Horrifying doesn't even come close to this. I went to a 25-year elementary school reunion where I found out that a guy in my class was now the principal of a middle school. He was well respected, well liked and doing a great job. I was very impressed. Back in grammar school he was the crazy kid in class who could never sit still. Was always getting in trouble and was barely passing his classes. After 10 years on the job, while still principal, it comes out that he never should have gotten the job as he had no prior experience, or training, or degree, and that even if he had all of the right certifications, his arrests, Convictions and jail time would have made him ineligible. This didn't come into play because he forged his fingerprints while applying for the position. All of this finally came out because he was arrested for statutory pay. Seems he had sex with an underage high school student he met online. The kid recognized him as his middle school principal and told his friend about it. His friend told his parents and the parents went to school officials. The kid was 16 and the principal was 44. The case is pending. My best friend Eric from elementary and middle school. I moved after 8th grade and recently reconnected with him after 4 years of absence. Turns out he dropped out. Lives with 5 other random junkies. Is addicted to PCP. And got a restraining order against him from his mom for beating the shit out of her. To think we used to ride scooters. I'm more horrified that they are the exact same person. My girlfriend all through high school left me after about a 5-year stint for a drug dealing idiot. During high school she was the captain of the cheerleading team and an avid churchgoer. About 6 months ago she created a Facebook account and sent me a friend request and an IM. I had heard she was bad off but had no idea. During the IM she asked how I was doing and I told her that I was raising a family and working on my MS. While working full time for a local college. When I asked her how she was doing I got no reply. I later sent her cousin that I am friends with a message to ask her what was up. She told me that she has 4 different kids from 4 different dudes in which she has custody of none and is a prostitute and crack whre. I wished a lot of bad things on her but never this much. Isn't that what Facebook's all about? I'm surprised often at how people I was pretty tight with in high school who were kind of wild and rebellious and FCK the system are super conservative adults. I know it's a cliche but in real life it seems strange every time to me. I didn't sell out. I bought in. Here's how the voicemail from one of my best friends from college went. Hey, how's it going, man? I haven't talked to you in forever. How are things? You should give me a call back when you get the chance. I'd like to talk to you about some insurance products that I can offer you. Talk to you later. F'kin asshole. I went to school with this kid. Let's call him Phil. I was never too close with the guy. As we were in different majors at our art school. Had a few core classes with him. We would talk from time to time. Seemed like the normal nerd type. One of the anime enthusiasts that would show up early to play hacky sack with the guy who wore a cape and the girl with a cat ear headband. Generally a nice guy. Ran into him grabbing some food about a year after graduation. We were both there alone so I asked him to sit and eat with me to be nice. He accepted. We spent the next 30 minutes catching up. He started acting very strange towards the end of the conversation. As if there was something he wanted to tell me but couldn't. We parted ways. 2 days later I see his face on the news. He had went home that night. And stabbed his mother, father, and sister to death. TL. Doctor saw a kid from high school I hadn't seen since. Killed his family later the same night. Facebook has allowed me the horror of watching old friends become in real time. It seems life for people after college is either drugs, pregnancy, or Jesus. Oh god. I had my old best friend from grade school track me down and asked to hang out. I was like sure why not. I drive out to his crack addicted father's trailer where he is staying and it turns out his life went to shitty after moving away and had been in and out of jail since. Well, on his last trip in he found Jesus and was aboard that I'm atheist so we spend the first part of the day talking about how I'm going to hell but as the day goes on we decided to start drinking and after a bottle of whiskey he asks me if we could go to the woods to commit suicide so we could be happy together forever. I note the FCK out. Drove 20 minutes drunk as tea. Stopped at a Walmart and slept till I was sober. First and only time driving drunk. I still get TXT every now and then asking me to go to church with him. Edit. That is honestly the only, somewhat, good excuse for DUI I can think of. I was looking to buy a car and was at some random used car lot. I've been talking to the sales guy for a solid 20 minutes before I realized I went to middle school with him. He was really haggard looking and missing a tooth. This story doesn't really go anywhere. The end. I saw an old friend of mine from elementary school begging outside in supermarket. We sat down and had a coffee. I knew he got into drugs quite early, but we lost contact years before that. He told me that the doctors gave him a year tops due to problems with the heart and liver. And junkies don't get new organs. He seemed very sad, but somehow as if he had accepted that he screwed up and would not get a second chance. I heard from my mother earlier that he had a child. His parents live next to mine and apparently gave up on him but supported the child in the mother. He said that even though he will die soon, something from him will stay behind. His daughter. When we said goodbye, he wished me luck and I could tell that he envied me for having a life to go back to. I did not know what to say. When I was younger, 5-9 years old, I had a neighborhood friend who had a very negative view of herself and struggled in school. She asked me for help once. And we made a habit of going straight from the bus stop into the woods behind her house to go hiking and do our homework. This carried on for years and is what I attribute to my love for the outdoors. When I was 10, my parents split and I had to move away. She told me she was afraid that she wouldn't do well in school anymore, and I assured her that she would be fine and that I'd be in touch. I didn't keep in touch. This was in the 80s and I was too young to understand how important those years can be. Flash forward to 2 years ago and she finds me on Facebook. Yup, she's a stripper. And before I get any questions about it, yes. She's incredibly hot now. But I am very happily married to someone even hotter. I ran into my ex-girlfriend from high school once at a restaurant. She lost a lot of weight and turned into a hot lesbian. The only thing that horrifies me is that I was the last guy she dated. Same thing happened to me. Think of it this way. After dating you, she must have thought, well, gee, if I'm not into a great guy like Sub-Z, then I must not like men at all. Maybe not having a bunch of friends ain't so bad. Actually, in my case it's the other way around. He turned into a better person for my delight. Whoa. 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 Save it for the alternate thread that'll front page tomorrow. My best friend in high school went away to the army after graduation. We lost touch after a few years. I found her on Facebook recently only to discover that she is now in love with God. Hates gay rights with a passion. And is on her 3rd marriage. We had a couple catch-up conversations over Facebook chat. A few weeks later I posted a story about the Supreme Court decision on DOMA and she sent me a huge rant about how disappointed and disgusted she was in me and how God will surely strike me down for my support of gay marriage. I would message her every day, I'm still not smited. I was contacted 10 years after graduation by our class valedictorian. He wanted to let me in on his multi-level marketing organization. The real world sucks. I was in junior ROTC in my freshman year of high school. There was a kid who I would sit by who would always be reading a book about World War II German warfare. Everyone else in the class would call him a Nazi for being so interested in German weapons. But I would say it was fine because the Germans really did have great weapons. Everyone stopped teasing him since the Asian guy, I'm the Asian guy, said it wasn't racist. A couple of years later I was at my local library getting a book. When I see the same kid. He had a huge swastika tattooed on his neck. So I guess he really was a racist. I can only imagine what Smaggle's friends thought about him at the Hobbit High School reunion. Sort of related. I guess I just never knew him as well as I thought. Worked with this guy Smith in San Diego. Cool guy. Went to his house for Super Bowl. Etc. 3-4 years later. Now stationed in Japan, I got called to go see the company. CO was actually the XO of my command in San Diego as well. Scared all day up until the meeting. Lowly E4 at the time. He starts asking questions about Smith. Eventually I find out that Smith and his wife are being held in the brig, on base jail, for almost killing their 1-year-old child. The kid had over 100 broken bones. Never heard any more of it after that until I was in Washington getting processed out another year later or so. A different friend who stayed in San Diego emailed me when he say the Smith guy was in the newspaper. Something about the court trail starting up. Never found out the result though.